case my lack of reply had you catching them feelings. Know you been on my mind like Kaepernick kneeling, or police killings, or Trump saying slick shit, manipulating poor white folks because they ignorant, blind to the struggles of the ones that got the pigment. Lately I've been stressing cause it seems so malignant. I need to feel your essence in my presence. If you with it, I guarantee you won't regret you.
So this project is a video that's going to look at the book, our last course reading that I just read, America's Game, by Michael McCambridge. And it's also going to be a reflection of the course in general and how I feel sports and society as a class went. So the first thing that jumped out at me about the book was that it was way more about the economy of football and the business aspect. It was more about the owners and the league itself more than the players, which isn't a bad thing. That just took me by surprise at first. It was very heavily about the owners in the league. A really noticeable character in the book, and a lot of time was spent on ex-commissioner Alvin Rozelle, also known as Pete. And as McCambridge describes it, when he retired in 1989, despite McCambridge giving Rozelle his due for turning the NFL into a big show, a major event, more like what we think of today, his legacy wasn't great, and there was player drug allegations, there were scandals, legality issues, and despite having a big mark on today's success of football, McCambridge describes Rozelle's administration as one that had its fair share of trouble. Under Rozelle, football surpassed baseball in many aspects as America's most popular national pastime, which had been dominated by baseball for a majority of our history's sports. And through public relations, advertising, corporate savvy, McCambridge describes Rozelle as the guy who was bringing in the TV money, the advertisement money, expanding the league, bringing it to new heights. I think it's worth noting that this book was published in 2004, and in my opinion, the NFL is in a drastically different position now than it was in 2004. The business of the NFL, the money, the numbers are very strong right now, very strong. In 2016, the NFL grossed over $13 billion in revenue. So it's a sport that generates billions of dollars. The money is there currently. However, I would argue that in 2004, if we're going to talk economics, in 2004, as a billionaire, buying an NFL team would be a worthy investment. And it has grown since 2004 to today exponentially, and the business has been booming. However, if I'm a billionaire today and I want to buy an NFL team, I would have a lot more reservation. I take some of the perspective of this book with a little bit of a grain of salt simply because in 2004 we were in a way different place business-wise and society-wise than we're in right now. I thought it was fascinating learning about owners like Dan Reeves, who McCambridge talks about, who owned the LA Rams, who were in Cleveland, and they were a losing franchise, and in 46 he moved them to LA. Actually also played a major part in desegregating football in general, turned the franchise around. The Rams ended up moving to St. Louis, and now, actually, as of today, they're back in LA, and they're really good again currently. In this book, as we saw, football surpassed baseball in the business of sport. In my opinion, what we're seeing currently and what we're going to see in the future is the NBA surpassed the NFL as America's biggest powerhouse in the business of sport. This goes back to what I was saying earlier. If we look at 2004 and you're a potential buyer of an NFL team, you're looking at a sport whose viewership is going up and up and up and up each year. It's growing in popularity. The TV money is coming in more and more every year. Viewership is up. Fast forward to today, and yes, it's a $1 billion revenue industry, but viewership is down. Viewership is almost 7% down from what it was last year, and that's significant. NBA ratings and viewership keep going up and up and up, just like the rise of the NFL. Owner Mark Cuban of the Dallas Mavericks spoke about this a few months ago, and what he contributed this to was the fact that with the rise of CTE studies and concussion protocol, studying people whose brain have been damaged by concussions, people don't want to play football as much as they used to, and this is affecting football at a youth level. And what he thinks is as NBA viewership rises and more people learn about how dangerous football can be, parents are going to want to have their kids play basketball, their kids are going to watch basketball, less are going to watch football, and the NBA is going to overtake the NFL. A major problem that's affecting football today from a society point of view has to deal with Colin Kaepernick. And a reason that I appreciate this class so much is because it makes me reflect on sports' role in society and what impact it can have through people of this country in more than just watching a game on TV. And what happened with Colin Kaepernick was in August of 2016, in his preseason games, he sat for the national anthem. He didn't stand. And the first two games, he went unnoticed. No one really commented on what he was doing. The third game, people started to notice, and by the fourth game, there were news outlets, media outlets, they knew he was not standing for the national anthem. And he released a statement that I'll read directly, which he said on August 28th. He said, "I'm going to continue to stand with the people that are being oppressed. To me, that is something that has to change. When there's significant change, and I feel the flag represents what it's supposed to represent, and this country is representing people the way that it's supposed to, I'll stand. This stand wasn't for me. This is because I'm seeing things happen to people that don't have a voice, people that don't have a platform to talk, to have their voices heard, and affect change. So I'm in a position where I can do that, and I'm going to do that for people who can't. It's something that can unify this team. It's something that can unify this country. If we have to have these real conversations that are uncomfortable for a lot of people, if we have to have these conversations, then that's better to understanding of where both sides are coming from. I have great respect for the men and women that have fought for this country. I have family, I have friends that have gone and fought on for this country, and they fight for freedom. They fight for the people. They fight for liberty and justice for everyone. That's not happening. People are dying in vain because this country isn't holding their end up of the bargain. As far as freedom and justice, liberty to everybody, that's something that's not happening. I've seen videos, I've seen circumstances where men and women that have been in the military have come back and have been treated unjustly by the country they have fought for and have been murdered by the country they fought for on our land. That's not right. So, by kneeling for the anthem, first sitting, then kneeling, what Kaepernick was doing was standing for people who were being oppressed by way of police brutality, namely people of color, minorities, being treated unjustly and unfairly by police officers. And this is a major issue in the country right now. It has sparked up groups like the Black Lives Matter group, and it has been a pivotal moment in American society beyond sports. But what Kaepernick did was merge this cultural crisis that's going on in America right now and sports and fuse them into one platform. And what he's saying is, I'm not disrespecting the military. I know that there are men and women that fight for liberty and justice for everyone, but what I feel is that in my home country, as a person of color, I don't get treated fairly in every circumstance and in the eyes of the law and in the eyes of police officers. And so when he feels that the flag is more representative of everyone, then he thinks he could stand for the anthem. His protest by kneeling of the anthem absolutely took off. More and more NFL players started doing it. High school athletes, collegiate athletes, soccer players, an MLB catcher, players in all different sports started doing this, recognizing what Kaepernick originally was taking a stance on, which was the issue that there's a massive police brutality and inequality problem in America right now. But what has happened as of late is that it's been misconstrued, the message of kneeling for the anthem, and has triggered a lot of hate. And there is a lot of actually ignorance to what's going on, and it's people's opinion that Kaepernick is kneeling because he hates the military or he hates America. For example, the American Legion in my hometown of Oneonta, New York, does a Super Bowl pick every year. For the Super Bowl, you pick a grid, and if you have the right numbers at the end of each quarter, you can win 10, 20, 30 bucks, whatever. They do it every year. This year, they're not doing it. And they said they're not doing it because they're protesting Colin Kaepernick protesting the national anthem. And it's their opinion that he's protesting the national anthem because he hates the military and he hates America. But what I find dangerous now is if someone is critiquing American society, if someone is using their constitutional privilege to protest, or if someone is criticizing things about our country, if that's anti-American, then we're in trouble. That is a sign that we're in trouble. If trying to critique our country to make it better, if that's anti-American, then I think that's a very bad sign, and that's actually where we're at right now. Kaepernick's message has been completely misconstrued and has triggered so much hate from an opposition that he never intended to be in opposition. So I think that's a massive problem right now for the NFL because there are people in support of Kaepernick calling for a protest of viewership of the NFL until more light is shed on the problem of inequality. And now you actually have viewers on the opposite end that don't agree with Colin Kaepernick. They want to protest as well. Because they think it's not right, it's anti-American that he's protesting. So that double whammy, I think, is very, very terrible for the NFL. And the combination of what we were talking about earlier with Mark Cuban saying there's just going to be more kids that want to play basketball and baseball more than football because of the concussion problem. You match that up with the Kaepernick issue right now, and I think that football actually is in a pretty tough spot. I appreciated this course because, above all else, it made me reflect on the role of how athletics can be so much more than the game. And just the Colin Kaepernick thing alone, I think, is so quintessential to what we're talking about. And it can be so much deeper than what happens on a 100-yard field or what happens on a basketball court or a baseball field or a soccer pitch. I mean, economically, it's a huge industry, but more than that, societally, it has just a massive impact, a massive cultural impact. We're in such a crazy time right now for the culture. I just think people like Colin Kaepernick, you couldn't pick a better time to be studying this stuff. And I think in 25, 50 years, when they're writing textbooks about this time period, I think it's going to be heavily documented what's going on right now and what Colin Kaepernick was talking about. Hopefully, he's portrayed as a hero because, in my mind, he is. He's definitely triggered a national debate. In some people's eyes, he's not a hero, he's a traitor, and he's anti American, but I don't see it that way, and I think if you really study his situation, you won't think that way either. But I think this course was just great for looking all around the world and different impact sports can have, and it made me reflect on things I'd never reflected on before. And I'm a sports guy, and there's a lot of this stuff that I just had never thought about in this way, and it's made me grow as a person and made me grow as a student. So I'm super appreciative of you, Professor Juan, because you've made me intellectually prosper through this class, through these course readings, and you've guided me in such a way that I've grown as a student. So I want to thank you for that, and I appreciated taking this course.